Hey guys, I'm Nick with 4Link 4-Wheel Drive. I'm the founder of the company, and today we're going to be showing you our debut of a fully bolt-on axle swap truss kit. So we'll get into that next.
Stay tuned.
Stay tuned. So this is our fully bolt-on axle swap truss kit for the Sterling 10.5 rear. So this is specific for this axle, and that's pretty much based on the axle tube. So I'll explain how it works, and then we can get into the install. Alright, so I'll just give you a quick overview of each of the parts here. So we have the driver and passenger side tube clamp assemblies. So we have the bottom tube clamp assembly and the top. Same thing over there for the passenger side tube. And then we have the center truss assembly here. So here's the bottom driver tube clamp part. And so essentially there are 3 tube clamps on this section. These are just a half of the clamp. The top has the other half. So the bottom and the top bolt together, and they apply clamping force on the axle tube. Alright, so here is the driver's side top tube clamp. And so again, this is pretty much just the opposite of the bottom. So this goes on top of your axle tube. So these two fit together. So again, we have our clamping section here, the tube clamp, and the same thing on the bottom. So you pretty much just have the top and bottom that come together and clamp down on the axle tube. So you can see it's not perfectly round here. That's because we leave some space between the two. Roughly about like that. And we do that so you have room for the clamps pretty much to tighten down. And then between, you have spacers, the clamp spacers that go in between the top and the bottom. So once you tighten the bolts down enough, you have contact pretty much with the top to the spacer and the bottom to the spacer. So here we have the truss center section. So exactly what it sounds like it is. It's the centerpiece, and this is actually what makes up like the truss per se. So the center, it really just bridges both driver and passenger side clamps together. So when you go to install it, like we'll show, I like to do both clamp sections and get them started, and then I put the center truss section on, and that kind of lines them up together so they're both in the same plane. So what we have on the center truss section is our logo. Love that. And actually, I'll go back a little bit here. So the top of all the pieces, so the top pieces, the top of the tube clamp sections are 3/8 inch thick steel. Same thing in the center here, it's 3/8 inch thick steel. Same thing on the passenger side. And then everything else is 1/4 inch steel. So so we have 8 bolts, 8 1/2 inch grade 8 bolts that go down through the center section and bolt into your top tube clamp piece. And we also have the upper control arm mounts here. So when you go to order this online, you can choose between the 2-inch mounting width, which is what I use. Probably more commonly is going to be the 2 5/8 inch mounting width for like your bigger Heim joints or Johnny joints. So yeah, you have you have that option to pick which one you want. So this is actually the front section of the center truss piece. So it faces forward on the vehicle. So really the main thing we want to look at here is the upper pinion brace mounting bracket. So we'll get into the pinion brace soon, but this guy is really important. Okay, so again, here is the forward part of the center truss section. We have the upper pinion brace mounting bracket. Now, here is the pinion brace. Again, it's essentially a clamp that goes around the pinion casting. So, clamps down on your pinion casting here. And the skid plate actually that I have on mine is an option that you can choose on the ordering page. You can see we bashed it up a little bit already. So basically, the way this mounts is you have your passenger driver side tube clamps, and that's what holds it in place for the most part, but the pinion brace is just like an added support. Some people are concerned that the axle tube itself is going to spin inside the truss assembly, and it's a valid concern. So I came up with this pinion brace that bridges between the truss itself and the casting. So, you know, with your pinion casting out really like quite a bit off of the center line of the axle tube, provides a lot of like leverage, more or less. This is the top part of your pinion brace. You have an adjustable bracket on the top here. So what determines where you put your bolt here pretty much is all your pinion angle, which we're going to look over then. But so this is the hole that works for me for my pinion angle. And so you got your upper pinion brace link here. You got the pinion brace top that mounts to your pinion casting area, and then this bolts in right here on the truss. So that way the pinion can't rock back or forth either way, which is essentially your whole axle. So that keeps it nice and rigid. And so we have 4 grade 8 1/2-inch bolts that hold the pinion brace together here. And then another option on our site for people who do more of like hardcore wheeling, or say you have a high horsepower rig and you just want to be extra sure that nothing's going to move. We have these I call it the triple link. So we have the 2 side links for the pinion brace, and then the top one, which is standard. But the triple links bolt in here to your each side tube clamp, and then it also attaches in here. So we'll show you when it's all assembled, but basically with those 2 on the sides, the pinion brace or skid, it can't back off, it can't be pushed in. So it keeps it nice and solid in case you get caught up on a rock and hit the back up like I did. So I was on a rock here, I backed up. Yeah, it keeps it in place really nice. You don't have to worry about it sliding off. We currently have listed for sale our version 3 of this. So the one you're looking at here has parts from 1 through 3. Basically, we just added some different things. I adjusted like the coil buckets, for example. They're slightly different design. So like the coil spring retainer, I did away with this style and I have another style. So you'll be able to see that on the website. So when you go to order this, you have 2 different options. You can order coil buckets, and if you do, I just ask that you supply like a measurement from center to center that would match your vehicle. So just so we can double check that before we ship the parts out, that it's going to work for you. We could always make like a custom offset one if we have to. The coil buckets mount on top of the upper clamp piece on each side. So this guy mounts right in here. There's two 7/16" bolts on the back, and there's one underneath in the front, facing forward in the vehicle. So the other side is pretty similar. We have the two holes on top. They're here, and then we have the front bracket, and that bolts into the lower controller mount. So if you choose our other option, it's the coilover mount, and the coilover mount mounts right on each end. So the version 3 truss assemblies have two holes cut out, so that your coilover mount can bolt right on there. So a nice benefit is if you say you order this for your ZJ and you're running coil springs like I am. So you can order the coil spring buckets, and then sometime down the road when you can dish out the money to get coilovers, you just unbolt these and bolt on your coilover brackets that you can order separately. Alright, so first for assembly we're going to put on the tube clamping sections. So one thing to note is the driver's side, you have your vent tube here, or your vent tube where the hose goes. I've noticed that these are in different locations for different years that the axles are made. Well, on our website there's a questionnaire that you fill out when you go to order one of these. So you just go through each question. Some are like selecting the bolt size you need. Some are free text where you would put in the measurement from the side casting of your, the side of the casting for the differential over to the center of the vent tube. So now I'll start to put the clamp pieces on. So I like to just put the top on. It just stays there, so that's easy enough. And then you can get the bottom piece started. So don't forget to put your spacers on. I just kind of put them on loosely here. A lot of mud in there. Alright, so I'm gonna just lift this up and start to get a couple bolts started here. Now it's just on here loosely. I'll just get the rest of these bolts in hand tight. So there are 22 bolts that hold the clamps together, the tube clamps. And then you have your 8 on the top, and there's the 4 on the pinion brace. There's still some wind rock on this bad boy. Alright, so we have both the passenger and driver's side tube clamp sections started. They're hand tight. Well, they're pretty loose still. But so you can still spin it on the tube. So that's good. That's how we want it. So next step, we'll put the center section on. and this will bring both sides into the same level. So we're gonna do that next, and then we'll figure out the rest.
Yeah.
I have the center truss bolts started, so I'm just gonna tighten them down quick, and that should move the top sections, well actually both sides completely, so that they're in the same plane, and it also might move them in or out a little bit so that they're all flush with each other. So now it's all together, moves together. So now what we can do is set our pinion angle. So normally you'd be doing this probably under your vehicle. I would just get all these bolts hand tight. We don't want this to be so tight that we can't turn it still. It has to be so that it can spin on the axle itself. So what you could do is use your small impact or something just to run these bolts in. But I find it's easy enough just to do it by hand. Check that we can still spin this. Yep. So that can turn, so that's good. So normally what you would do is put this under your vehicle, hook up your links, and I already have my angle set, and I have it marked on the casting and on the truss assembly itself. So I'm going to tighten it down without putting it under, just for yeah, it's just easier to see what's going on here before putting it back under the vehicle. But yeah, so I'm going to set my pinion height now, my pinion angle. Actually pretty close already. So, sharp. So now that I have the pinion angle set, I'm gonna start tightening down both tube clamps. So I'm gonna start with the center 4 bolts and pretty much just crisscross it. And we'll put in the actual written instructions, I'll have the order of how to tighten it. So what I'm gonna do is tighten down the 4 bolts here. 4 bolts here in the center. That way it holds each tube clamp section together. And then we can remove the center section again so that now they're in line with each other. And it just gives a little easier access to the bolts that are underneath the center section. So then we can tighten these down and torque them properly. For now I'm just going to run the bolts in at a low torque setting with my small impact. Alright, so those should be good now. So I can remove these 1/2-inch bolts and I can finish tightening the tube clamp sections. Alright, so now I'm going to run in the other bolts and again in a crisscross fashion. And that'll get these nice and snug, and then we can torque down the bolts properly. Just gonna take out the vent tube here just to get a little better access to this bolt. So for the 7/16" bolts, which are the 22 that line the tube clamps, you torque these to 70 foot-pounds torque. Now we can put the center truss section back on, torque these down, and then we can do our coil buckets. Alright, so I ran in the bolts for the center truss section with the impact, get them snug. Now I'm going to torque them down to 105 foot-pounds. Maybe. Easier when it's in the vehicle at this point. So I'll include a normal length 1/2 inch bolt here, but I also include one that's 1 inch longer. So it's pretty convenient. It's a similar location to factory Jeep, the brake line mount, and also the brake hose mounting hole is a 1/2 inch as well. So it's perfect. This it mounts right here, nice and snug. So alright, so now I'm going to just put on the coil buckets, and there's a few extra bolts that attach the lower controller mounts. So it pretty much attaches the lower half to the top half. So this is just an additional bracing for lower controller mount. And then this bolts in on the side here, and there's another lower control arm bracket on top over here. This one's a little easier to see. There's two symmetrical small tabs that connected up top there. So it pretty much just helps distribute the force of the lower controller mount into the top piece of the clamp too. So now we're going to install the pinion brace. So there's two main parts here. We have the top half of the brace and the bottom. So I'm going to first put this in, this bolt. Okay. So when you get this, you have to kind of adjust the pinion brace depending on your own pinion angle. If your pinion's down further, more flat, you'll be able to move back to this back hole. Say like the further up you go, you probably have to move to the holes more forward. But you're probably going to be in one of these three back here. When you get this, the jam nuts will be loose, so if you see, I tighten it up, it pulls the brace back, or the other way, pushes it forward. So I want the brace to be back pretty much as far, well, I'll give you the measurement, but it's about 3/4 of an inch here in the front is what we want. So right around here will be good. I'll tighten this up after we get the rest of the brace on. So also in the newer versions, there's a connecting plate here in between each of the sleeves. So there's 4 of those. It just kind of helps keep it more rigid. So set your top piece on. I like to feed these up through the bottom. Actually, take the washer off. Okay, so I'm going to put just the one in here first, just to get it started. The washer, the lock nut. Put the back one on. This side. I just like to make sure that it's pretty much level or in the same plane as the top of the truss. So you can move it around a little. It doesn't move too much, but it kind of locks in place here with the different cutouts and whatnot. So on mine I use the triple pinion links. So again, the top one comes standard with the normal brace. You have the option of the pinion skid plate, and then these are an option as well. So these tie in from here back to the truss, and that just keeps the pinion brace really strong and rigid where it's at, so it can't move. You can always order these after if you want to, or you can order it right from the start. I think it's a nice, just to, you don't have to worry about, again, if you go wheeling, backing up on a rock and possibly moving the pinion brace. And these jam nuts will be loose as well, so you'll be able to get it. So after you put your pinion brace loosely on here, you can just spin this either way. It'll lengthen or shorten. You can get it to match up really nice. And if you order the triple link kit, you get this 7/16 inch bolt is a little bit longer. So just something to note when you're assembling it, that if you have those two bolts that are just a little bit longer, that's where it goes with these. Now all we have to do is tighten these down, and then tighten our jam nuts here. Everything's tight except the jam nuts, so I'll tighten those up. Sweet. It's all together. Time to slap her on in.